Welcome to this week's assembly. Have you ever been too busy to help somebody else? Have you ever wanted your mum or dad to do something with you or for you, but they said they were too busy? Have your mum and dad ever asked you to do anything for them, but you were too busy playing and you didn't do it? Don't know. Well, when we care for someone else, we try to think about them and put them first. We put ourselves in the second place and we think about the person that we care for, what they need, and we try to help them. Someone who was really good at doing this was Jesus. Many times, Jesus was very, very busy teaching, telling stories, teaching people about God, but he was never too busy to help those who needed him. The story I'm going to tell you in a minute is a good example of this. And this story also teaches us that when bad things happen, it's hard to think that God cares. But God always cares, even when we're going through difficult times, worries and fears. Jairus was a very important man. He was the leader of the synagogue, which was a Jewish place of worship. But a terrible thing had happened. His daughter, who was only 12 years old, it was his only child, was very, very ill. In fact, she was dying. No one could seem to help her. Jairus thought to himself, I need someone who really cares for children and who is powerful. Now, Jairus had heard about Jesus and some of the miracles he'd done. Can you quickly shout one out? Do you remember any? Do you remember the one I told you where Jesus calmed the storm before half term? Well, this is the day after that. So Jesus was going across the lake, he calmed the storm, he went to the other side, and the next day he came back. And he was in the town again, where Jairus lived. So Jairus decided to go and find Jesus. Well, it wasn't hard to find Jesus because there was a great big crowd around him, as often there was wherever he went. Imagine Jesus being in the middle of a great big crowd. But because Jairus was important, people knew who he was, they probably stood aside to let him go through and speak to Jesus. And so when he saw Jesus, he said to him, Jesus, he knelt down and said, Jesus, please come and make my daughter better. I think she's dying. I know that you care. Please come to my house and heal her. Well, you know, and I know that Jesus did care. And so he went straight away with the crowd following him. It was a big crowd, tightly packed together, a bit like if you've ever been to Kassam to watch Oxford play. Coming out of the Kassam Stadium after an Oxford United match, people were bunched up together, pushing and squashed up a bit. And so Jesus and Jairus with the crowd went towards Jairus' house. Now, one of the people who was in the crowd was a woman who'd been ill for 12 years. It was a bit of an embarrassing illness. She had bleeding inside her tummy. It wasn't something that she could talk about in front of other people. She'd spent all her money on doctors, because in those days you had to pay. But no one could make her better. She just kept getting worse. She must have heard of Jesus and some of the miracles he'd performed. And so she thought, if only I could get to Jesus and touch his cloak, I'll be healed. And so gradually she pushed her way, inched her way through the crowd, reached out, touched Jesus' robe, and as she did that, she felt in her body healed. Suddenly, Jesus stopped and said, Who touched me? Peter, one of his disciples, said, Lord, people are pushing and shoving. There's a great crowd here. Everyone's touching you. It's a real squash. But Jesus said, No, I felt power go out of me. Someone touched me. While Jesus was saying this to Peter and he'd stopped, Jairus thought, hurry up, Jesus, my daughter could be getting worse. We need to get there quickly. The woman realised that Jesus knew that she touched her. And so she said, it was me. And she was very nervous, fell down at Jesus' feet, and in front of all the crowd, she told Jesus all about her illness and how when she touched his cloak, she was healed. Jairus thought again, I don't care. My problem's worse than yours. Jesus said to the woman, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. Just as Jesus finished saying that, somebody came running up to them from Jairus' house. Jairus recognised him and said, what's wrong? The man said, Jairus, I'm sorry, terrible, terrible news. I'm afraid your daughter's died. Don't bother Jesus anymore. Can you imagine how Jairus felt at that moment? He felt sad, devastated. He thought, if only Jesus hadn't stopped to care for this old lady, we could have got to my daughter in time. It's too late. She's dead now. What am I going to do? And then Jesus said something amazing. He said, don't be afraid, just believe and she'll be well. So Jesus, Jairus and the crowd walked on to Jairus' house. As they got to the house, people were crying and wailing, showing that they cared for Jairus and his wife. As Jesus approached the house, he said, stop all that noise. What are you doing? She's not dead, only asleep. And the people laughed at Jesus because they knew she was dead. Jairus felt as if he'd never care about anything else ever again. Then Jesus took Jairus. There might be a question on this just to remind you, or give you a heads up. Jesus took Jairus, Jairus' wife, we don't know her name, and 3 of his disciples, Peter, James and John, with him into the girl's bedroom. She was led on her bed. Jesus held her hand and said, little girl, get up. Guess what? The little girl opened her eyes, stretched and stood up. She'd come back to life and wasn't ill anymore. It was amazing. Jairus felt bubbling over with happiness again, and he realised that Jesus didn't just care for old people like the lady with the bad tummy. He didn't just care for him like adults, Jairus as an adult. He didn't just care for Jairus' daughter, a child. No, he realised that Jesus cares for absolutely everyone. Just before we have our quiz, I'd like to invite you to say an open eyes, keep your eyes open, and a 2-finger prayer, your 2 index fingers. What I'd like you to do is put one in front, which stands for you, and one behind, which stands for somebody else that you might be able to help today. It might be a friend, it might be a mum or a dad, someone else in your family, it might be a teacher, a TA, it might be a dinner supervisor, or someone else. And as I say the words of the prayer, just slowly bring yourself behind the other person as a sign that you're thinking of them today, and I'll pray for them. And if you agree with my prayer and want to make it yours, say Amen at the end. Okay? Are you ready? Dear Jesus, help me to care for other people. Help me to put other people first and myself in second place. You did this all the time. Please help the person I'm thinking of now. Please, Jesus, comfort them, strengthen them, guide them, and heal them if they need healing. And please, Lord, let them know that you care for them and that I care for them too. Amen. Sometimes we have needs like the lady that we don't feel comfortable in talking about in a big group. But it's always good to talk to someone else, at least one other person that you trust, about how you feel and any problems, worries, fears you have. And we can all be comforted to know that God knows about our problems and he cares for us. And we can talk to him about our problems at any time. He's always there and he always listens. Okay, here's our quiz. I'll just get the questions. There's 10 questions, but one of those questions has 5 points. So it'll be a total of 14 points. Usual, I'll read through the questions. If you get a bit of paper and a pencil, jot them down and I'll give you the answers in a minute. Question 1. At the beginning of the story, who came to Jesus with a problem? What was their name? Number 2, how old was this person's daughter? Number 3, what was wrong with her? What was wrong with the person's daughter? Number 4, what did the person want Jesus to do? What did he ask Jesus to do? Number 5, on the way to the house, who touched Jesus's coat? Number 6, how long had this person been ill for? How many years? Number 7, this is the 5-point question. Who went with Jesus into the little girl's bedroom? There's 5 people. Can you name them all? I'll give you a chance to write it down. Who went in with Jesus to the little girl's room? Number 8, what did Jesus say to the little girl? 4 words he said. And number 9, what happened then? And finally, number 10, what did Jesus then tell them to do? What was his instruction? Okay, I'll give you the answers. Number 1, Jairus came to Jesus with a problem. Don't worry about the spelling. If you remembered who it was, that's a point. It is Jairus, but don't worry about the spelling. Number 2, his daughter was 12. Number 3, what was wrong with her? Very ill, sick, dying, words like that. Number 4, what did Jairus want Jesus to do? Heal the girl, or heal his daughter, or make her better. Who touched Jesus on the way to Jairus' house? A woman or a lady is the answer. Number 6, how long had this lady been ill for? And the answer's 12 years. The 5-point question, who went into the room with Jesus? It was Jairus, his wife, Peter, James and John. What did Jesus say to the little girl? Number 8, get up, little girl. Number 9, what happened then? She got up, she was healed, she came back to life. And number 10, what was Jesus' instruction? He said, give her something to eat. And that is the end of the quiz, the end of the assembly, and I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you got on well with the quiz. When I see you, let me know how many marks out of 14 you got. Okay, bye.